We're with Populous Group. We will be covering the topic from identity to impact, and excited to go through it with you. So let's start with some introductions. Jen, let's start with you.
I'm Jen Pasquire. I am our marketing leader. I have been with Populous Group for 15 years, based out of Seattle, and I have a wonderful team that helped us show up really well here this week.
Yes.
Thank you.
Hi, my name is Tanisha Thomas. I am the head of diversity, equity, and inclusion for Populous Group. I'm out of Troy, Michigan, and my role is to really help develop our DE&I strategy and implement it.
Hi, I'm Karen Philbrook, and I am the head of HR for Populous Group. So all things people, including our internal and external workforce. I've been with Populous for about 8 years.
And I'm Mario Lambert. I'm responsible for sales and marketing, all things business development. I've been with Populous Group for 13 years, and we're excited to keep sharing with you. So just a little bit about us. Who's familiar with the staffing and workforce solution space? Just by show of hands so I can know how deep you get into this. All right. So for those of you all that are not as familiar, many clients, large corporations, they oftentimes are looking at their staffing providers and staffing needs and trying to find an efficient way of managing it. So whether it's the contractors or it's the suppliers that they have, we provide a managed service solution to give them the efficiency and a better way to go about it. And we do that through a variety of different solutions, such as immigration to IC compliance and recruiting needs and so on. So that's it in a nutshell. Well, we like to say that we're a people-first organization. We are very passionate about creating a culture where people are free to be who they are and to lean into their gifts and all that. So just a little bit more about us. We're very humble in our growth. We've been around for, is it 22 years now?
21.
21? Almost 22. I'm always getting ahead of things a little bit. But in 21 years, we like to say that we just got we just became legal adults and being able to do things at 21. But that also means that we've learned a lot, though there's a lot that we haven't learned yet. So we're still growing into who we are. And you'll notice that in a lot of what we share today, there's appreciation for what we've been able to accomplish, but also humility in what we still yet need to learn. But what we have accomplished, though, is we've grown to be just over a $600 million in revenue organization. So that means that we've learned a lot and made quite a few mistakes along the way as we've done that. We have just under 300 employees.
Yep.
Right? And we represent in a few different hubs across the country. We are a remote-first workforce.
Just a whole nother session.
That's a whole nother session. Yeah, exactly.
It's a hot topic.
We'll cover a little bit of that. But yeah, there's just a couple of highlights about who we are and what we do. I don't think we said, I'm from Chicago. You might have said Seattle.
I said Seattle. I'm from Seattle.
Yeah.
Troy. You did?
Troy.
Yeah, Chicago. All right. Anybody else from Chicago here? Yes. All right. All right, for sure. Good stuff. All right. And then just at a high level, again, as we think about what it takes to drive success relative to how we're going to share it today, you're going to notice that we're very intentional about defining who we are. We believe that a lot of success begins with being certain about your identity. When you're certain about who you are, it's easier to translate that to your targets and your customers and so on. So we're going to share a bit about that. Mentorship and strategic partnerships is very critical to our growth strategy and how we've been able to do that. We want to keep you encouraged to be thoughtful about how you can do that. And then growing your impact, it goes into, Bobby Herrera. I didn't mention that we are a Latino-owned and veteran-owned organization. If Bobby Herrera, our owner, was here, you would hear him focus and talking mostly about what good are we doing in the world? What impact are we making on the people that we serve? And who are we becoming in our route to do that? So as we continue to do better, we have a responsibility to pay it forward. So you're going to hear a lot about we're striving to get and do more so that we can continue to give more along the way.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah.
Thanks, Mario.
Thank you.
So Mario mentioned one of the things that we're going to focus on is defining who you are. For us, in our space, it's really important to understand not only what you do and what sets you apart, any niches you fill in your marketplace, but also we would argue that your why is even more important. Understanding your purpose and really making sure that you are filtering that through your organization. Your values as a leader should be very clear, obviously to you, but you have to make them clear to your people as well, so that you can use those values to filter the decisions that you're making, both with internal culture decisions, but also with partners that you're working with mentors, and how you're operating your business. Mm-hmm. So for us, that's the bus story. The bus story is why we were founded, and it is the foundational story that has really shaped who Populous Group is in our culture, and has driven us to our belief that everyone deserves the opportunity to succeed. This is a story that is best told by our founder and president, Bobby, so I'm gonna let you hear it from him.
When I was 17, my brother and I, we were on a return trip home from a basketball game. And on the way, we stopped for dinner. Everybody unloaded off the bus, except for me and Ed. At that point in our family's story, we didn't have the means to play sports and afford dinner to join the team. So a few moments after the team had unloaded, this gentleman steps on board the bus. He was one of the dads of the other players. And he walks towards the back, and he teased me a little bit because Ed had outscored me that night. And then he said something to me that I'll always remember. Bobby, it would make me very happy if you would allow me to buy you dinner so that you and your brother can join the team. Nobody has to know. All you have to do to thank me is do the same thing for another great kid, just like you on this bus. And I'll never forget the wave of gratitude that I felt come over me at that moment. I was one of 13 kids, and the only constant in our life up to that point had been struggle. And although at that point I couldn't see 3 feet in front of my face, I had no idea what I was going to do with my life. All I knew is that I wanted off that bus. And as I reflect back on that moment, people have often asked me why it had such a profound impact on me. And it took me back to my family story. And more than anything, I wanted what I believe every one of us want, is I wanted my life to matter. And I wanted to take control of my own story. So when I got off that bus, I knew that I was going to do whatever it took to figure out some way to pay forward that kind act of generosity. And years later, I reached out to Mr. Teague, and I shared with him the story and how I had applied that kind act to help other kids that were like me on that bus. And it was a special moment for us. And a few days later, I received a note from him. And in that note, he thanked me, and he said he didn't mind admitting that he had shed a few tears during and after the call. But what meant the most to me is he told me that he felt like his life had mattered.
I've heard that story so many times at this point, and it still gets me every time. So
I never heard that version.
it's a good one. Yeah. So the bus story really, is a foundational part of our purpose. And, I've been with Populous Group for a long time, for 15 years. And when I first started, I didn't know the bus story. It was something that Bobby didn't share with us as employees of Populous Group until I want to say about 2011. So, within the last 15 years. And it was something that as soon as you heard it, you could connect to our culture. Prior to that, we could feel it. We could, sort of talk about it. We could interact with it and within it, but we couldn't really describe it to somebody else. We couldn't say, hey, this is what we believe in as a company and what we're trying to attract, in terms of employees, in terms of customers and partners. And so that moment of Bobby sharing that story with us as a community really was a turning point for us. And from there forward, we defined our culture code. We really slowed down and spent time. We borrowed a page from HubSpot's book. A lot of companies have created culture codes now. And we've also iterated it several times since then. We also have simplified it. The first version of it was like 100 slides long with like 10 different things. It was a lot to remember. And it was all true to us, but it has been simplified over the years. And this is where we're at now. So these tenets are sort of true to that story and help us really filter our decisions, filter who we're bringing into our community, who we're partnering with. Things like going off the beaten path. We're always trying to find a way to yes. Obviously, in any industry, there's a lot of regulation. There's a lot of, this is how we do it, processes and procedures, but we always are trying to find a way to yes and sort of bringing our entrepreneurial spirit and drive for results to life through that. We also speak from the heart. We have a very open and approachable culture and community. So we really want people to be able to say what's on their mind, even when it's hard, especially when it's hard. And through our purpose, giving more than you take is really important. So again, in our daily work and our partnerships within our communities, those are the things that are really important to us.
One of the things before we move on to this next slide, and I didn't even get a chance to chat with you all about this, but I was talking with Bobby on Friday before we were coming here, and one of the things he said to me is that, a stat that I wasn't completely familiar with. So pre-Bus Story, Populous Group had grown to 100 million. Post-Bus Story, we grew 500 million. So a lot of this can feel, touchy-feely, how does this, create revenue for me? And it was basically a match tossed into a fire to where our community could rally and really touch, and we knew, how to really bring this feeling we had to life. So there was a huge, business opportunity within us, really slowing down to identify that.
And from a sales standpoint, it made it so much easier to translate. We talk about value. You want to be a differentiator in the marketplace. We were able to translate who we are and how we do it with so much more clarity with our alignment to this purpose. So hopefully, you all are considering, what's your version of a bus story? Because we talk about this a lot. That's Bobby's experience. This is lived experience, and we can all relate to the energy of it, the intent of it. But then we all individually, we also have, stories. So if you're a leader of a team, or if you're leading your organization, you're leading your company, what is your team rallying around is the question. What's your compelling story that's allowing people to gravitate to your purpose and your why and why you do what you do? It creates amazing results when we do that.
So, as Mario shared, and as you heard from Jen, we've done a lot of simplifying over the years. And one of the things that we spent a lot of time around is creating really clear company-wide priorities. So about 13 years ago, the executive team was just, really struggling to understand, why aren't we accomplishing, the goals that we've set out, at the level and momentum that we're trying to. And it became really clear to us that we may have had a goal in our brain, but the company in different areas was kind of running in its own directions. And so we took a lesson out of one of our favorite teachers, Pat Lencioni. He has a book, if you haven't read it, it's called The Advantage. And we create now what we call an annual rally cry. And so we slow down, we solicit feedback from the community each year to say, hey, what's working, what's not working, what's most important for us to think about going into next year. And we really pull that feedback from the bottom up. So our frontline employees have just as much of a say in, what they're experiencing and what they think we can do better going into the following year. So we take that feedback as an executive team and we kind of lock ourselves in a room in December and we cipher through it, and we will create what we call our annual rally cry. And then 3 to 4 ways that we're going to accomplish that as a community. And we use every opportunity we can to over-communicate clarity. So our annual summit, we're rolling it out. We're all problem solving around how are we going to accomplish this with, our best and brightest in the room with us. We are having bi-monthly calls to, again, over-communicate what progress are we making, how are we feeling, and then again at that year-end time, slowing down to say, what progress, did we make based off the feedback from our community. It's super important to kind of institutionalize these things. So we've gone as granular as in our learning management tools to say, hey, you've got a goal. Can you pick what defined objectives that this fits for this year's goals, and literally pick the drop down and attach it to it so people can really see how their work, no matter what seat you're sitting in, is really feeding, the greater goal of the community that year.
Mm-hmm. And it's really important. Again, I've been at PG for such a long time. Before we started doing this, we had fat heads. I don't know if everyone big. I mean, big.
Fat heads
like,
were a big thing for a while.
Yeah, big murals on our walls with all kinds of words and things that were important and priorities. And every person had their own quarterly goals. And so, as Karen mentioned, we were kind of all going in directions, but we were all going in different directions. So this really has helped us focus on what's most important during that year and what we need to accomplish as a community, but as individuals as well and teams. So,
relating it back to identity, and I'm just thinking through it. If you pull 5 different people from your organization, you ask them what's most important, and they're all giving different answers, that's a struggle with identity. So this is really critical, to the alignment.
One area too, before we move on, that I want to touch on is selection. So we have worked really hard to kind of hone into our selection process and really look at, value-based hiring versus skill-based hiring, and really leaning into, hey, what things can we teach someone, and really hiring for that potential, but then investing in their development to help them grow to a place that, maybe another company, would have passed on that talent, but we see that potential and that value alignment. And so really encouraging our leaders to lean into that from a selection standpoint, because we strongly believe that one of the most important decisions you will make is who you invite to join your community. And, that is something that we take a lot of pride in. I would definitely lean out there and say people are our superpower, and selection is something that we, take really seriously. So we've talked a lot about purpose, and, I leaned into some stats from a business standpoint, but from an engagement standpoint, people want to, feel like their work matters and it's serving something bigger than themselves. So the sooner you can connect your people to your purpose, again, I'll use this word a lot, institutionalizing things. So how are you putting this into your processes and systems? So when you're interviewing someone, they understand your purpose and how they feed into that. From the time they join your community, they understand, and through storytelling, like things like the bus story, they're seeing how they can connect to that purpose, and then creating opportunities, whether it's through community engagement or volunteer hours. So anytime you can, really connecting them to the bigger good that their job is serving is such a crucial part, to your employees' engagement. One area, we talked a little bit about selection that we leaned into early on was really looking at, what barriers are we creating in our selection process that, were prohibiting us from hiring either diverse talent or having a bigger talent pool to fish from. And we pretty quickly removed the 4-year degree requirement from, our entry-level jobs. We were realizing that, again, values, were something that you can't necessarily teach someone that value alignment, but, where can we see that potential, and really getting our leaders, we have a literal practice, which, when I first joined Populous Group, I was like, this is very literal. We call flipping the resume. So right. We teach our leaders this in selection training of, hey, your goal is to really feel out that value alignment. So before you get, too hung up in all the accolades and experience, we want you to flip that resume over and really get to know them as a human and seeing what their dreams and goals are. And does that align, with the purpose of our company and where we're going? We've also really leaned into flexible work arrangements. So there's no secret that there's a labor shortage now. So, I think a lot of times we can feel like, things need to be, X way, but sometimes the difference of, shifting someone's work hours just a smidge can be the difference between,
retaining that person, who could grow to be a super valuable asset for your community. So, any way that you can do that. We've also leveraged technology to help us with that. So if someone does, need to pick up their, sweet 5-year-old off the school bus twice a week at this time, we've leveraged some tools to look at, how can we make sure that the customer's requests don't get lost if that person's not, staring at their inbox. So utilizing some technology to make sure that requests and needs for our contractors and customers are coming to, one space so we can continue to serve, but also give that person the flexibility that they need, in order to have that balance. And then finally, from an engagement and retention standpoint, so pre-pandemic engagement was a lot about ping pong tables and snacks, and then the pandemic happened and it flipped upside down. We very quickly realized that all the things we thought we needed for engagement no longer mattered, and what really mattered was that our really strong, talented people, they want interesting and challenging assignments to work on, and sometimes that doesn't come from their day job. Sometimes it's, hey, someone has a passion for DE&I, and they're willing to start a council as their side hustle for Populous, and but it's something they're passionate about that keeps them engaged and excited. And sometimes it does create, their future job opportunities, or sometimes it's, I have a gifted Excel and I'd love to try and play with that audit to see if I can fix it, even though I'm an onboarding coordinator. So. Any way that you can really give your talented people interesting and challenging assignments, it goes a really long way from an engagement standpoint. And anytime you can ask your employees, are these things working? We definitely include those in our engagement surveys, asking questions like, my work serves a bigger purpose. I feel like my voice is heard here. My work is challenging and interesting. And every year we're in the high 90s when it comes to those things of people feeling like, I matter and I'm doing important work, which goes a really long way for retention.
So you all have heard the African proverb, to go fast, go alone, to go far. Who's heard it? Mm-hmm. Go together. There you go. So I want to focus on 2 areas with you here. One is around mentorship, the other is strategic partnerships. With mentorships, it's really important that we consider mentors as we're growing our business, our careers as individuals, but also in business. When we think about finding the right mentors, we're talking about a lot of what we've discussed already, like what is your identity? What do you believe? What's important to you in the community that you're looking to build? And that way you can communicate that effectively and find mentors that are maybe a few steps along further than you are to help you get there. Those relationships, sometimes we look at those as relationships where, they're just paying it to us or they're feeding us this way. But if you find the right mentorships, particularly that are aligned in the space that you're in, the industry that you're in, could even be clients, it could also create opportunities for win-win relationships. In a lot of cases, I like to define it as win-win-win. A win for the end client, a win for a potential strategic partner. You can go to the next slide. And then a win for us as well. So let's talk about how we've done it. We have, very early on, we identified some partners in the industry that we tapped on their shoulder and wanted to offer something that we could, ways that we could help them grow and add more value to their value proposition. So no matter how large a company is, they face some type of a struggle. They may have some difficulty being nimble and adjusting to customers' needs. They may have gone all in on, I like to look at it as every organization has multiple doors of entry. And if you're good at what you do, you have a key that can get into one of those doors. A lot of the larger organizations have 2 or 3 really, really good keys that are probably the best in what they do, but they struggle to have that 4th or 5th or 6th key. But oftentimes, those are the keys that get you in the room of the discussion because everybody's fighting over those first 2 or 3 doors. So when we started our organization, we aimed to create value add that helped larger players that were mentors in the space to us, help them get better at aligning to their end customer. So we created services that they didn't do as well. Again, I mentioned immigration and IC compliance and cost-efficient payroll solutions and so on. So those are the gaps where we identified the support that was needed. And that allowed them to say, hey, we're really interested in continuing to mentor and support your growth because you're not directly competing in our core doors that we're going in, but you're also complementing us and making us look better in the market. So that mentorship evolved to more of a strategic partnership. And again, it works really well when you're aligning with organizations that have similar beliefs because as we talk about as a sales team, you want to have a relationship with somebody that's going to invite you into the room. But in order to get invited into the room, they got to trust you. And you have a better shot of building trust. You don't have to speak the exact same language and have everything flow, but they have to believe that fundamentally you're aligned in a very, very positive way. Your beliefs on how you serve your customer, your beliefs on what type of community you're creating and so on. They trust that, and they trust your rep, they trust you. There's a lot of good you can do. A lot of good you can do.
Is this me?
Yes, this is your turn. Yay!
It's your moment. It's my moment. Well, again, hi everybody. My name is Tanisha Thomas, head of DE&I, and I just want to say that I absolutely love working for Populous Group.
We did not pay her to say that.
I am absolutely one of those stories that Karen was talking about in terms of showing up every day, doing my day job, but then also raising my hand to say I have a passion for something else. I've never done it before formally, but I feel like I got the skills. They invested in me, and it turned into an entire position for me to where now I'm up here speaking to you all. So I am a living testament that the things they're talking about, they actually live by. What I will say is when it comes to DE, and so don't look up there yet because I'm just kind of talking. But when it comes to DE&I and the journey that we've been on here at Populous Group, in the very beginning, it started with the bus story. Even before there was a bus story, Bobby was way more invested in DE&I outside of just being an MBE, outside of just checking the box to say, hey, I have the certification, we should be good. No, he always felt like everyone deserved an opportunity to succeed, and he really made that a part of the organization. On the journey, though, we had some bumps in the road. We were doing the best that we could. I will say that we were operating out of a place of good intentions, which is great, but good intentions don't always have the impact that we want to have. And so it took a little while for us to get to a point where we had to slow down and really organize and structure around DE&I in order for us to assess what kind of impact we were having and then begin to get to a place where we can grow that impact. So before we get to the core areas that we kind of rallied around, what I will share is some of the symptoms that kind of started to pop up where we noticed that we needed to really get a strategy, organize around it is one, we were doing a lot of good stuff, but we couldn't articulate it, right? So when we talk about the clarity and over communicating, clarity, we couldn't do that. We had a lot of good things. We were flipping the resume. We had flexible work schedules. We had all these things that were happening. But when it was time to go out for that RFP and they asked that question, we didn't know what to say.
It was awkward.
It was very difficult to put it into words, right? In addition to that, there were a lot of people in the organization that knew the bus story, knew the purpose, but depending on who you talked to, priorities were a little all over the place. There wasn't a lot of cohesion. So we honed in, we slowed down. They gave me a job. I sat down with the executive team and other leaders, and we really came up and developed that strategy. So what we did is we rallied around these three things that are on the screen here now to really help us formulate. And so what I'll say is that these three areas are great across any industry, any size organization. As I'm talking with folks in the exchange, a lot of folks are rallying around this. And I think if you're able to build your story and get your data points and understand how everyone touches this, you'll be in a good spot. But I'm going to share with you what we did. So the first is embedding DEI in everything that we did. We did not approach it from just a compliance perspective. That is absolutely the wrong way to go. It's really about making sure everyone in the organization understands why you're doing it, understands how they touch it, and their responsibility to it. And when I say everyone, that's not just the minorities in the room. That's everyone that's a part of the organization has a responsibility for making sure that you reach your DE&I goals. The other one that you have up there is pay it forward. Again, going back to the bus story, is just the philosophy that we live by, that you have to help other people in order for you to grow. And so we do that as much as we can. And then the third one is creating community impact. So again, it's not okay to just do business in a city or in a state or globally? How are you actually impacting that local community? What are you doing to give back? How are you making sure that those communities feel good and that you're not just there conducting business and then running out? So some examples of how we've actually done that as a part of Populous Group. Well, the first is partnering to accelerate impact. And it's been such a joy to have conversations with those in supplier diversity, with those that are part of HR teams. Some people have actual DE&I folks, internally as well. But we have to have those conversations. We have to be clear on what we stand for, what we're doing. But then we also need to understand, what are you doing? And how can we, as a part of your ecosystem, help you get there faster, help you make a bigger impact, maybe reach out and have some influence where maybe you don't, right? To really accelerate those goals and really drive those results in a bigger and better way as we talk about growing your impact, right? The next one is our diverse supplier mentorship program, which absolutely came out of some of those partnering, conversations where, it's important for us to give back to other MBEs. We've had a lot of lessons learned, but we also know that MBEs have a lot of barriers that they're up against to kind of grow and make it in different programs or whatever, results they're trying to drive. And so for us, we want to make sure that we're offering opportunities to give back, right? So in our diverse mentorship program, which I'm helping build out with some of my additional partners, we are slowing down, having that one-on-one conversation with them, really understanding what parts of your business do you need help with to continue in the programs that you're in, to grow in the programs that you're in, to make sure that you're not just kicked out of the programs that you're in, right? What do you need and how can we give you that? And if we can't give it to you, how can we partner with other people to help you get that knowledge? And it's a year-long program that will start up hopefully top of the year, and we'll be bringing in a couple selected partners to really help us with that. But it's really great just because you get an opportunity to get in front of some of the people that we've already made a path for. So why make you do it on your own when you can just come with us? Like, we want to bring everybody up around us, and that's really that pay it forward mentality. And then finally, because we're probably out of time, community impact is all about giving back to the community. So we have two core groups that we really like to be involved with, which is kids and veterans, obviously from the bus story, right? Wanting to make sure we're taking care of those two communities. So we have what's called the Populous Project, which is our philanthropy arm. And we make sure that we're giving money and time and energy into these two communities, really making sure we're developing, STEM programs, and we're doing it on a local basis. We're doing it on a national basis. If we visit a city for like our company goals meeting or whatnot, we're like, hey, we're in Houston, let's do something in Houston because we're here again. We're not just going to come in, do business and leave. Right. We want to make sure we have an impact there as well. So it's been, again, a joy to work for Populous Group. I did not get paid to say this. It's honestly been one of the best places I've ever worked because they gave me an opportunity where other people may not have been able to do that. And for me to sit up here and be able to talk to you about something I'm so passionate about, I didn't apply for that job. You know what I mean? Like, I came in here to do payroll. And I think I did a good job, but I love it so much better over here. And it's just a joy to be here and to talk to you all today. So thank you.
Yes.
And I think, it's funny Tanisha says that because there's so many stories in our community. I'm one of those also.
I'm one of those. We're all one of those.
Yeah, we are. We are all one of those. I was given an opportunity by somebody. I knew nothing about the staffing industry when I joined Populous Group. And I think where the flip the resume piece really comes into play for me is, I wanted to get into marketing and thought I would have to leave Populous Group to do that. And they trusted me enough and supported me to be able to do that. So here I am also next to Tanisha. Yes. And I've had the opportunity to build a really great team and really aligned to our purpose. And it's been fantastic. So also did not get paid to say that.
So I guess as we wrap up and move into a few questions, I want to just get you all to think about, your culture. And if you're creating an environment where people are able to lean into their gifts and their talents to the point where they can evolve and become the best version of themselves and arrive in a role where they can thrive, the way that you're hearing right now. I think that's a gut check question for all of us, that we have to continuously ask ourselves, are we creating that environment today? Maybe we celebrated it even last year, but things change. Market shifts. Dynamics change, they evolve. So we have to keep gut checking ourselves. And that's something we have to do. And then the last thing I want to highlight this. is that how many minority-owned businesses are there in the audience? Okay, fantastic. I want to humbly tell you that for the first greater part of our journey, we thought we had DEI figured out because we are a minority business. So it's like, we don't need to do diversity, equity, and inclusion. That's who we are. But you were talking about like RFPs and all that, but we go to fill out an RFP, and year over year, these RFPs are getting more and more particular and sophisticated. These buyers know what good is, and we're trying to answer the questions, and we're having a hard time speaking to our sustainability, speaking to our corporate responsibility. We feel it, but we're having a hard time articulating it. So just one last challenge or question to you is, have you decided that you don't really need to focus on DE&I because you are DE&I? So just want to challenge you on that thought. So with that, was I supposed to be speaking to that slide?
If you would like to, if you would.
Well, I think we're good. We can go to,
I
I think I covered a lot of this already.
Yeah.
So thank you.
Yes, thank you.
Thank you very much.
We have a question.
Yes. We don't have a microphone, so yeah.
Latasha Norwood, managing partner of Melbourne and Associates, we're a project management consultancy based in Houston. Great presentation. Question: what advice would you give to a minority firm that's looking to incorporate DE&I in their brands? And then what other advice would you have on helping to implement some of the recruitment strategies or staffing strategies within our businesses?
I'll start with the DE&I question. So I'll say, to begin with, you probably want to assess what are you already doing, because like I said, as part of our story, we were doing a lot of good stuff, but it was all over the place. It was somebody doing something over here, somebody doing something over here, and we couldn't articulate it. So you're probably doing a lot of great things already. Slow down, figure out what that looks like, and bring it in. What I would also say is to rally around those 3 core areas that I talked about. So how are you embedding it in how you operate? Not it's a priority today and not tomorrow. Not I have a program that I start that has a beginning and end date. How is it literally woven through your organization? And then from there, that'll help you align with who you partner with. And then you can also start to give back in your local communities. But start with assessing, like, what are you doing right now? It's probably some good stuff.
Yeah, we did also, before we got too far in our strategy, we surveyed our community and asked, like, how are we doing? What would you like to see? Where can we get better from a DE&I perspective? And so we did take some of that feedback and figure out, where are we missing and, how can we fill those gaps?
We also, one other thing, we also have, we have a DE&I council. We have ERG. So we have some formal bodies within our organization that really helps to push forward the strategy that's in place. So it's not just like a one-person show, but sometimes you're not at the space where you can get a whole council yet, or you can get a whole ERG. So that's okay. You just start with the people you have, assess what you have going on, and just rally and start getting those small stories together, and just make sure you can articulate it. And from there, it'll begin to snowball and grow.
Hi, my name is Deborah Owens. I'm founder and CEO of Wealthy You. We're financial wellness companies, and we help employees leverage their benefits and help companies have happier employees and loyal employees. The question I have for you is, I find your growth remarkable, and what I keep hearing is the RFP process, which is the bane of our existence. And so what I'm very interested in understanding is, how did you wrap your arms around that process specifically, and what advice would you give to smaller organizations who, basically, I am the RFP.
Yeah.
Jenny,
Do you
want
want
to
me to
start?
keep going?
Yes.
So one of the things that we've found that's helped us, and being around for a while, we've kind of iterated this process as well. But really slowing down and understanding, what are some of the very common questions that you're going to be asked in your RFP, and really understanding how you want to respond to those, and having a library of responses ready. It's not always going to be the same every single time, but generally speaking, we've found that if we have a response to speak to DE&I, if we have a response to speak to a specific service that we're bidding on, it does make that process a bit easier for us. And then we can tailor it and get a little bit more specific to the needs of that RFP and that customer. But that is one thing that has been monumental in helping us navigate that process. And then going back and, making sure, from a marketing lens, making sure that it speaks through your brand voice and that it speaks to, through your filters of your culture and your purpose and those sort of things as well. And we actually go through and review our responses now on an annual basis to make sure that we're still seeing that alignment, that we're evolving the responses to the evolution of our service offerings, and that we are continuing to make sure that they're working for us, basically. So taking feedback too from customers and working those things through. So.
Jen, remember the highlighter test?
Yes, another thing that has really helped us too is making sure, because when we're speaking to a customer, we want to make sure we're speaking to their problems and looking at it from their lens. So one thing that we used to do was we used to go through our responses and highlight the number of times that we said populous group.
Or
I, really to say, hey, as a customer, this is the problem that you're facing. Here's the solution to the problem, and here's why we're the best partner for you. So that really helped us sort of flip the narrative and make sure that it was coming from a customer's point of view as well.
With respect to the schedule, we do need to wrap up. We'll be more than happy to stick around and have some conversations with you on the side. So thank you again for joining us today. We look forward to seeing you all again in the future. Thank you.
Thank you.